Welcome to the Brava family. This is your Brava tutorial. If there's one thing that we recommend every Brava owner to do before they cook with their Brava, it's to watch this tutorial. Hi, my name is Sham. I work with the Brava customer success team. Not only am I a proud owner of this beautiful Brava, but I also spend every single day helping Brava owners fall in love with cooking with the Brava. And let me tell you, I have an absolute blast doing it. The goal of this tutorial is to provide you with invaluable insights to get started with the Brava and to help you customize what the Brava can do to meet all of your household needs. By watching this tutorial, you'll have comfort in knowing that you have one of the world's most advanced cooking solutions in your kitchen, and comfort in knowing that you have a rockstar team here at Brava willing to go the extra mile for you. You'll also have confidence. Confidence in your ability of cooking with the Brava, and confidence in being able to cook meals that can rival even those of professional chefs. And the coolest part about this whole thing is you're cooking with the power of light. Now, with any new technology, there can be a slight learning curve. And our goal is, after this video, we will have taught away that learning curve, and we would have helped make using the Brava much more intuitive. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of using the Brava and working on that, let's talk about the parts that it comes with, all the accessories, and how this is different from anything you've ever used before. Let's jump right in. Let's first start with the outside of the Brava. What you'll see is this beautiful finish. It's an anodized aluminum finish on the outside, and on the inside we have a stainless steel finish. The materials are so high quality that while the Brava is cooking, you can place your hand on the outside and it'll just be warm to the touch. It won't be burning hot like most conventional ovens would be. You'll notice that right on top of the Brava there is a black Brava mat. It is a heat-resistant silicone mat, and it's designed specifically for you to be able to take your meal right out of your Brava and place the tray right here. It serves as a temporary resting spot for the hot tray. The screen here on top of the Brava is where you will control your Brava. And right to the right side of it, there's a button. That is the start and stop button. When the cook finishes, there is a notification that plays. You can press this button once and it'll mute the notification. Now let's take a look at the inside of the Brava. You'll see a beautiful finish, but you'll also see 3 lamps on the bottom, and we also have 3 lamps on top. So we have a total of 6 lamps heating and cooking your food. Now these lamps emit heat in the form of light, and so when you turn the lamps on, that heat gets absorbed right into the food. Let me give you an example of if you're standing outside in the shade. If you're standing in the shade and you extend your hand out into direct sunlight, what happens to your arm? It immediately starts to warm up. The same heat that's coming off the sun, or the heat that would come off of a campfire, that same heat is being emitted from these lamps. When you think of a traditional oven, the entire cooking chamber needs to heat up first, and then your food can warm up. That's why you normally have to preheat your oven. With the Brava, you won't have to worry about preheating anymore, because the moment the lamps turn on, your food starts cooking. These 6 bulbs that are inside of the Brava, they're specially designed, and they most closely resemble, say, a halogen bulb that you might have in your home. They're designed to last tens of thousands of cooks. If you look on the inside of the Brava, you'll see these perforations on the metal. That's where the fan is. Now, that fan is going to turn on every single time after a cook, and it'll turn on for 2 reasons. 1, to protect all the wiring and controls from overheating, and 2, to prepare your Brava for the next cook. All of the 1,000+ programmed recipes that we have in the Brava are designed to start from room temperature. So once you finish a cook, the fan's going to turn on, you open the door to allow cool air to rush in, and then when it cools down, you'll be ready to go with the next cook. It usually happens within a few minutes. Next, on the left-hand side of the Brava chamber, you'll see an insert spot for the TempSensor. The TempSensor is a specially designed instrument that's very advanced that allows the Brava to adjust its cook in real time. And it tells the Brava when your cook is completely done and your meat is perfect to your doneness. So I took the top part of the TempSensor and I just wanted to show you how it works. If you look here, you'll see measurements. The TempSensor not only tells the Brava how to cook, but it also tells you how tall your protein and vegetables are. So you see the indications there? The first silver portion is about 1 inch, the next 1/2 inch, and then another 1/2 inch. So in total, you have about 2 inches on the TempSensor, and that's what you can use to measure your proteins. One of my favorite parts of the Brava itself is the camera. Now the camera is located right underneath this display, right there on the inside of the chamber. And if you put your fingers underneath, you'll feel the indentation for the camera. When your cook starts, the lamps will turn on, and on the Brava and on the Brava application that you downloaded and installed earlier, you'll be able to watch your food cooking live. It's probably one of the most fantastic things because I can walk away, do things that are more important with my time than sit there and watch the food, and I can just monitor and come back when it's done. And now what I have in front of me, these are all the Brava accessories that you can purchase. You have the metal tray, the glass tray, egg tray, chef's pan, muffin tin, you have a loaf pan in here, and you also have a square pan or a cake pan. Every single person will receive a temperature sensor right here. And it comes with a little connector, and it protects the temperature sensor, and I'd recommend removing this first and then inserting it into your Brava. Now all of these can be purchased from the Brava marketplace. You can access that by logging into your account at brava.com or just clicking on the marketplace tab on the Brava app. So we have all of these trays here. Now, how do you know when to use which tray? Let's take a look at something first. Let me pull this metal tray up. On the metal tray and the glass tray, you'll see the numbers 1, 2, and 3, indicating the zones on the tray. 1, 2, and 3. Now zone 1 starts at the front and zone 3 is at the rear of the tray. And when you select any Brava preset recipe, the instructions on the Brava or the instructions on the Brava mobile app will tell you 3 things: which tray to use, what to place on which zone, and which shelf to place the tray into. As you can see, you'll see 2 shelves here. The first shelf here on the bottom, and then the second shelf here on the top. So we have 2 positions you can place your trays into. Let's take a look at cooking with the metal trays. Think of the metal tray as a skillet. The metal tray is incredible at adding a sear to foods and adding a crunch to your pizza, to your grilled cheese, to your chicken wings. It's designed for cooks that require more energy to be transferred from the bottom to the top into the food. When it comes to cooking with the glass tray, I like to say that the G in glass stands for gentle. In the case of most seafood options, some vegetable options like kale, you'll pretty much be using the glass tray. When it comes to this guy right here, the chef's pan, think of the chef's pan as a Dutch oven, because that's exactly what it is. It can be used for any recipe you find online that requires a Dutch oven for cooking. And most of these chef's pan recipes require you to bake or slow cook your food. And usually that's done through the bake function in the Brava. This right here is the egg tray. And the egg tray makes some of the most wonderful eggs you have ever had. Anything related to eggs and even some recipes that call for making mini pancakes, you would use this accessory. The muffin tin, the loaf pan, and the square pan, they're all made of metal, the same as the metal and the egg tray, and they're remarkable to bake with. When it comes to the bake, reheat, or the sear features, you have freedom to choose which tray you'd like to use. There's a question that we get asked pretty often. Do I need to put aluminum foil on these trays? Well, the short answer is no. If the Brava preset recipe program does not ask you to put aluminum foil on the tray, then don't. The more consistently you can follow the instructions that are on the Brava, the more consistent the cook results will always be. Now the nonstick coating that's on the Brava, it's a silicone-based nonstick coating. It's absolutely phenomenal, second to none. So when it comes to using these trays, you'll be A-okay. After you're done using one of these trays, what you want to do is wait until you can touch the tray by hand. So wait until it cools down. Take that tray, place it in the sink, run some water on it, let it sit for a few minutes, and then take a soft sponge, never anything abrasive, and wash your trays. One thing I will note, just like any non-stick trays that you've ever used before, over time there can be a slight discoloration, but know that that is completely normal and it happens. The thing with all of our Brava cookware is we've designed and rigorously tested every single one of them to work with the advanced technology that's inside of the Brava. We have not had the opportunity, and it would be very difficult to rigorously test every single possible cookware that's out there. So if you choose to use non-Brava cookware, there's always the possibility of a little bit of a risk. That being said, we understand the realities of cooking at home, so our culinary team has put together a list of generally approved non-Brava cookware. In an effort to be mindful of your time, I don't want to go over all of them right now, but I want to make sure you get all the information. So you can go to our brava.com website, click on support, and then search for the terms use of non-Brava cookware. And you'll find a detailed article that tells you everything that we recommend you can use and what we recommend you do not use. A natural question would be, after I do all this cooking in the Brava, I'm going to want to clean it. Well, what about the lamps? How do I clean the lamps? Well, the simple answer is you don't have to do anything. Every time you cook with the Brava, the lamps get hot enough to burn off anything that might be on them. So don't do anything. And one thing to keep note, don't use any cleaning supplies and don't apply any abrasives on the lamp itself. If you ever get that urge to want to touch the lamps, just don't. Leave them alone. You don't want to mess with the integrity of the lamps. They're designed to last. Let's keep them that way. There's one question I haven't answered yet. How is cooking with light really different with the Brava? Well, we already know the moment the lamps turn on, your food starts to cook right away. Along with the ability of cooking immediately, we also have this unique ability of controlling each of the 6 lamps. That is how we're now able to cook more than one item in the Brava at the same time. Actually, up to 3 items at the exact same time on one tray. So how do you cook more than one ingredient at the same time, and how does it work? So let's go over this. We know that we have 6 lamps. The front 2 lamps correlate with zone 1 on the tray, the middle 2 lamps correlate with zone 2, and the last 2 lamps correlate with zone 3. Depending on the recipe that you've picked, it'll tell you whether you need 1 ingredient, 2 ingredients, or 3 ingredients, and it'll also tell you where to place them on the tray. So a natural question that arises here is, can I pick whatever I want to put on whichever zone of the tray, and will the Brava be able to cook it? That's a very good question, but let's hold on to it and we'll get back to it a little bit later in the tutorial. Another unique thing that the Brava can do to cook more than one item is something that we call 2-tray cooks. In the office, we call them double-deckers. The way it works is you use 1 tray for 1 ingredient, place it on the top shelf, and you use another tray for the second ingredient, and you place that on the bottom shelf. We have over 50 of these, and they're specifically designed for our larger Brava families, for 4+ individuals. There is something I should note here, though. Not every protein is possible to cook in a double-decker option, and it's pretty logical why. Some proteins require searing from both sides, from top and from bottom, and when you have a tray on the top and one on the bottom, you're not going to get a sear from both sides. You're going to miss one of the sides because of the setup. So there are some proteins that you cannot use the 2-tray cook option in. You can locate all of the 2-tray cook options on the Brava or on the Brava app. The best way to do this is just click on the search icon, and then a little way down near the top, you'll see a filter that says 2-tray cooks. Click on that and all of the 2-tray cook options are going to populate on the screen. We're going to go more into detail on how to actually use this feature in the next section. Speaking about locating recipes to cook, next we're going to go into the Brava user interface. So that's the main home screen that you'll see on the Brava when you turn it on to operate it. Instead of going into too much detail right now, there's a video. You can watch the video that's called Brava Functions Overview. Again, that's going to be on the support website under instructional videos. To get the most functionality out of the Brava, we want to make sure that the Brava and the Brava app are both connected. Now at this point, if you have not had the opportunity to download the Brava Home mobile application, I highly encourage you to do it. It's going to truly enhance your entire cooking experience, and the app itself is one of the most integrated with any cooking device that you've ever used. The first thing that we want to do is turn the Brava on, connect it to Wi-Fi, and log into your account. Then, after you go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download the Brava Home application, sign in to the application using the same email and same password as you use to sign into the Brava. There are a few reasons why we emphasize connecting your Brava to the internet through Wi-Fi. Now, to be clear, you can cook with the Brava whether you have internet connected or not. The only thing is, if you're not connected to Wi-Fi, you will miss out on a lot of the great updates that we send. So we have about 1,000 preset recipes right now, and every single Tuesday, we're adding more. So we're increasing the functionality of the Brava every single week, making it better and better and better. When you're connected to Wi-Fi, you'll get all of those updates. Another reason why it's so beneficial to have your Brava connected to the internet is so right when you start a cook, you can walk away and take care of things that are important to you because you'll be able to monitor your cook live from your phone or your tablet. Now, if you need help setting up the Brava or the app, we have 2 videos specifically designed to guide you through that process in our collection of instructional videos on the Brava support page. And if you have questions, even after going through the instructional videos, don't worry at all. The Brava customer success team is here waiting to help you, so just reach out. If you are one of the few that received the Brava as a gift, first of all, congratulations, that's an amazing gift you got there. And second of all, you might want to know how to sign in because you didn't purchase the Brava. When you set up the Brava for the first time, you'll have the opportunity to create an account. Now imagine you received this Brava from somebody else. Then what do? Well, you click on the settings option in the Brava, then scroll down until you see the word account. Then, if someone's already logged in, click the sign out button, and then you'll get the option to create your own account. Now that we have everything set up and we're good to go, let's now figure out exactly how we can find items on the Brava to cook. One of the easiest ways of searching for what you want to cook is by searching through the cook tile. Everything is organized in the cook tile by the type of food: vegetables, chicken, pizza, etc. As you locate any individual ingredient that you'd like to cook, you'll also see a list of all of the possible combination preset recipes that you can do with that individual ingredient. Say if you have a dietary restriction and you want to configure the Brava to show you only the items that you can eat. Well, there's a configuration icon on the top right-hand side. If you click on that icon, you'll be given a bunch of options to pick from. Another thing that I like to do when I'm searching for something I might want to eat is use the search feature. The search feature on the Brava app and the Brava work in the exact same way. I'm going to show you a few useful things that you can do to make it easier searching for things on the Brava. When we have one tray and we have 2 different ingredients on that tray, we call that a combo or a combination cook. My coworker, Kate, has created a beautiful short clip showing you exactly how to use the search feature. Now that we know how to locate the recipe that we want to cook, let's first, before we jump into cooking, talk about some of the very important tips and tricks that the chefs have put together for us to share with you. This is something that we share with all of our Brava owners, and we encourage everyone to pay attention to these, because once you know them, it makes it very easy to just jump right in. These are just a few things to keep in mind to make the cooking experience much better. First and foremost, the chefs have designed each of these recipes to work perfectly, so always follow the instructions provided in the Brava and in the app because they'll set you up for success. Here are a few things to keep in mind. 1. Height matters. When a recipe asks you to enter the height of the protein you're cooking, it's important to input the correct height. Every time the height changes, the chefs have designed a completely different cook to cook that protein. Thicker proteins require more energy. Thinner proteins require less energy. So always make sure you're as accurate as you possibly can be. 2. Pat your food dry. Now this goes for vegetables and for your proteins. You don't want things to be too wet and soggy when you put it inside to cook. 3. Keep the food in the zones indicated. If the recipe asks you to place asparagus in zone 1, don't place the asparagus in zone 3. Why? The Brava assumes that zone 1 will have asparagus. If you put something else in its place, the Brava's still going to put out enough energy just to cook asparagus. So always be cognizant of what the Brava is telling you. Which zone should the ingredients be in? Place them on exactly those zones. Number 4, prep the ingredients to be the same size. A lot of times the vegetable cuts may require the potatoes to maybe be at 1/4 of an inch or the broccoli to be under 2 inches. Whatever the instructions say, stick to it. Like before, the Brava is going to assume you followed the instructions. So if your potatoes are 1 inch bigger than the size that it's requiring, then you're going to have some results that you may not be completely happy with. Try to stick to the height requirements and you'll be extremely pleased with the results of the cook. Number 5, cook the proteins straight from the fridge. Now in this case, the ideal protein cooking temperature is 35 degrees to 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the Brava. This means pull it out of the fridge, maybe a minute or 2 sitting outside, put the temperature sensor inside if it's required, and start the cook. You do not want to cook these proteins straight out of the freezer. The programs on the Brava are designed to start from 35 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 6, cut into your protein within 2 to 3 minutes. Because we're using light to cook the proteins, what this means is a lot of that energy is absorbed straight into the protein. After the cook finishes, that energy is still inside and it's still cooking. To release that energy that's inside of the protein, just cut into it within 3 minutes of finishing the cook. Number 7, wipe down your Brava and camera after each cook once the Brava chamber has cooled down. This is self-explanatory. All you want to do is, if you want to keep the Brava clean, wipe down the Brava after each cook. Number 8, let your Brava cool between cooks. This is an important one. Each preset recipe assumes that the Brava chamber and the trays are at room temperature at the start. If you don't want to wait for the Brava to cool down before starting the next recipe, please make sure to keep an eye on the second cook, or another option is you can reduce the cook time of the second cook and just pull the food out a little bit early. We recently talked about a lot of different ingredients, and we had earlier talked about the different uses for all of these trays. What I want to do is share with you the ideal way of actually filling one of the zones. You'll see a demonstration of butternut squash. Each zone is filled differently. As you'll see on the top zone, it's overfilled. The bottom zone is underfilled, and the middle zone is perfectly filled. What you want to keep in mind is that if you overfill a tray, many of the vegetables in that zone will be undercooked, and some of them, because they're closer to the lamps, they may also burn a little bit. So you always want to make sure you're not overfilling. And in the case of underfilling a zone, what happens there is the Brava is assuming that there's a certain amount of butternut squash on that zone. If you put fewer butternut squash than can fit in the zone, the Brava is still going to put out that energy. And all of those fewer pieces of butternut squash will almost always overcook and can char as well. But if you fill it up like it is in the middle zone, that's exactly how our chefs have designed it, and you'll have the best results there. One of the things that I want to cover with you now is something that's extremely important, especially if you're going to be cooking proteins. I want to talk about this temperature sensor. It's very advanced. It has 5 different sensors on the needle, and it communicates with the Brava in real time to make sure your protein is cooked perfectly. Now the temperature sensor comes with the rubber gasket. All you have to do is remove this piece, and then you can plug it in to the side of the Brava. you'll notice that there's a cord on it. This cord carries a lot of the wires that tell the Brava what to do. We don't want that to be completely exposed to the lamps. I'll cover in a bit how to avoid damaging this cord. To ensure that your proteins cook consistently, we want to make sure that this temperature sensor does not get damaged. So these next 4 points are very critical. They're easy to remember, so once you see them, it'll be hard to forget. First of all, you do not want to insert the temperature sensor halfway into the protein. Always insert the temperature sensor fully into the protein. The sensitive sensors that are on the needle, we don't want them to be exposed to the intense heat that's coming off the lamps. So, let's let the temp sensor do what it does best. Read the temperature inside the protein, so push it all the way in. Number 2, never insert the temperature sensor on an angle. The temperature sensor should always be inserted parallel to the tray. This is very simple because we want to protect the sensor and we want to get a proper reading of the protein. Insert it all the way and parallel to the tray. The third thing to keep in mind is when you insert the temperature sensor into the protein, it should always be on the thickest part of the protein. You never want to insert it on the thinner side. So always insert it all the way in, parallel to the tray, and in the thickest part of the protein. Lastly, whenever you insert the temperature sensor, make sure that the protein, even if it's the only protein in the Brava, is placed on the left side of the tray, close to the guardrail, so the temperature sensor cord can gently be tucked underneath. You'll see that the guardrail is on the left-hand side of the Brava chamber. That guardrail is where you want the rest of that temp sensor cord to be tucked under. So the first time you use the temperature sensor, keep those points in mind and you'll have a great experience. If you need more instruction on how to use a temperature sensor and you want a visual of inserting it into some protein, we have a video, again, in the support site on the website. And just click on the instructional video section and you'll see one teaching you how to use the temperature sensor. There's one thing that I do want to give you a visual of right now. Say if you insert the temperature sensor into the side of the Brava, then you get ready to place this into the protein. What will happen is at times the cord will just naturally jump up and it'll go towards the lamp. And then even if you force it down with your fingers to try to get it under the rail, it won't go. So we have a very simple thing that you can do to resolve this. Hold this portion of the needle, it's going to be inserted into the protein, and just use 2 fingers and rotate the cord. If you rotate the cord clockwise or counterclockwise, you'll notice that the cord just starts to move in a different direction. So you can release all of the tension that's in the cord, not by forcing it down, but by simply rotating. Now that we've set up the cook, we know about how to use the temperature sensor, we've picked the recipe that we want, now it's just a matter of getting the cook started. This is really simple. Follow the prompts on the screen, it'll set everything up, and it'll take you to the last screen, which is called the checklist screen. On that screen, you'll be able to review everything you've selected. After everything looks okay, simply close the Brava door. The green light will light up on the button and click start. And that's it. Then you can open up your Brava application and you can watch the cook live. Say the cook you just set up just finished. You take it out and you look at it and say, it's not as crunchy as I would like, or it's not as charred as I would like. Is there anything you can do? Yeah, there is. Now that the cook is set up and it's running, say if the program finishes and you realize that it's not exactly as you would like. The default settings on the Brava are set to be an average good for most people. And we've added a feature to make it easy for you to be able to adjust it to the exact desired doneness that you might have. This we call the slider mechanism. This is a great way to customize a preset recipe to match your desired doneness. Within an individual ingredient cook, you'll find a slider as one of the on-screen prompts. As you can see, the slider adjustment is always on the default setting. You can use the slider to personalize the cook to increase or to decrease the default cook time by up to 20% in either direction. A good example of this is if you like to eat your veggies super crunchy, The default cooking program for the broccoli might not cook it to be as crunchy as you like. So in that case, you can move the slider to the right to add up to 20% more cook time. After every single recipe program finishes on the Brava, a screen will pop up. It'll give you 3 options. Are you done? Would you like the touch-up? Or would you like to make a custom cook? When you click on the touch-up option, you'll be given 2 options. Either to increase the doneness or to add an additional sear to your item. Now say you want to use the custom cook feature and you want to create a custom cook out of the recipe that you just cooked. Well, there are a few different things that you can do. And to save time right now, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity of learning all of them. We've created a custom cook instructional video, which, you guessed it, you can find on our instructional videos section of the Brava support website. Head over there and you can really learn how to take advantage of the Brava and customize almost anything. But before we move on, I do want to give you a practical example so you can understand where custom cook would be handy for you. Say you like to make fresh pizza every week. Each time the default cook setting is great, but you might like a little bit more crunch to your pizza. Hey, maybe you like your pizza really crunchy. Then at the end of the cook, when that screen comes up giving you the option to click on touch up and add an additional sear from the bottom lamps to get that crunch on your crust, you can do that. But instead of having to manually do that every time, you can click on the custom cook button at the end of your cook. And then you have the option to add whatever step you'd like. And save it as your own pizza plus crunch preset. Good news, we're creeping up to the end of the tutorial. So before we wrap up, there are a few frequently asked questions that I wanted to cover with everybody. One of the questions that people ask is, what do I do if I can't use a TempSensor for my protein because it's too thin? Can I still use that preset? The short answer is, no. Don't use the same preset that's asking for a 1-inch thick steak when your steak is only 0.75 inches. You don't want to damage the temperature sensor by putting it into something that's too thin. Instead of using that recipe in the Brava, there is another way of doing it. In the cooking section of the Brava support website, there's an article called Cooking Thin Proteins. I don't want to cover it now because there's so much detail in there. It'll give you actual instructions for exactly how to cook certain proteins. And it explains to you the logic behind it and how to cook it using all the other Brava features. Trust me, it's very doable and you'll have a good time with it too. Can I select what ingredient goes in which zone and will the Brava cook it? You might remember this question from earlier. Well, now it's time to address it. To be able to cook more than one item at the same time on one tray is already a game changer. There's no appliances that can do what the Brava does this well. And we've already uploaded a couple hundred different combination options. So the goal is to be able to pick an item, pick the zone, and click start. But before we implemented that for everybody, what we first wanted was when you bought the Brava, you should be able to make an amazing lunch, breakfast, dinner, and a dessert. And so that's why we focused on creating those recipes first. So right now, you can't pick the item and then the zone and tell the Brava to just go. However, now that we have a bank of about 1,000 different Brava recipes, the culinary team is actively researching and developing the ability of doing just that. Pick the zone, pick the item, and set it. So for now, until that is developed, I would highly recommend just stick to all the combination options that we have, and you'll be good to go. There is one thing I should note. When this update does get sent to your Bravas with this new feature, it is going to add thousands of new combinations. Just the recipe combinations will reach beyond the 1,500 mark. So you will be able to do more than you could have ever imagined with the Brava when that update does come out. Another question that we get asked pretty often is, how do the chefs make each of these recipes? For the Brava to be able to cook the hundreds of different Brava recipes as perfectly as it does, the chefs here had to work so hard at figuring out exactly what every single one of the lamps did to cook that food perfectly every time, not just once in a while. It's not easy. They had to consider a few different things while doing this. Give an example of standing outside in the sunlight. If I'm wearing a darker colored shirt versus wearing a white shirt, when I'm wearing the darker shirt, I'm going to warm up a little bit quicker. It's just science. It's the way that darker colors absorb more energy. Now, if you're thinking about the density of food, something that's heavier, that's denser, will require a lot more energy for it to cook effectively. Something that's less dense will require less energy. Now, the chefs had to put all of this together and perfect every single one of these combinations. There is one thing to keep in mind. There are just some things that, because of the physics of how they cook, it's just very, very difficult to make a combination with them. But the chefs constantly try, and they try to find new ways to make the things that were once impossible, possible. The third question that we get asked pretty often is, how does substituting work when it comes to Brava preset recipes? For example, say if you have a recipe and it's asking for broccoli, and you don't want to cook broccoli. You don't want to eat broccoli. Maybe you don't like broccoli right now. You're just not in the mood. Okay, you don't need to cook the broccoli. Let's let that go. If you want to substitute it for something else now, how do you do that? Well, there's two rules of thumb. Try to find something that is similar in color, and try to find something that's similar in density. So instead of broccoli, maybe you're in the mood for Brussels sprouts. Just go with me on this. Well, Brussels sprouts would make a really good substitute for broccoli, but potatoes wouldn't make a good substitute for broccoli. So all you have to do is follow those two rules, and then you'll be good to go. Now remember, you may not get the exact results that you're looking for, but that's because you've made a little adjustment. And know that you're experimenting at that point, and that's completely okay. The more you experiment, the more you'll get out of the Brava. So do that for sure. And remember, you have the slider, and you have the touch-up options after the cook to be able to get the doneness for that Brussels sprouts to be exactly what you wanted. So don't worry about experimenting, actually do it, and you'll get some great results. The last question that I wanted to share with everyone is, so what if there's a combination or a individual ingredient that you're thinking would be great to have in the Brava, but you don't see there? Is there any hope of it ever showing up? Short answer, yes. When we launched the product to where we are now, we've added over 850 different Brava recipes. Most of those were suggestions from users like you. So if you have an idea for something and you really want to see it and you think it's possible, send the suggestion to us. The email you can send it to is suggestions@brava.com. Those emails go straight to the Brava chefs. They add that suggestion to a list of things to test, and if it's successful, yes, it'll show up on your Brava as a new item. After doing all of this cooking, I'm sure a thought in your mind is, how do I keep the Brava clean? The outside's gonna look pretty clean, but on the inside, I'm sure you're gonna wanna try to find a way to keep it shiny like this. So for you, we have created a Brava cleaning video. On that video, we're gonna tell you all of the things that we use that we've tested and we know work really well, and we're gonna show you exactly how to use them. You can find them on the same site as all the other videos, the instructional videos section of the Brava support website. When you go there, you'll see everything that you need to know to keep your Brava looking new. Well, there you have it. That is the Brava tutorial. I know it was a little long, but I thank you so much for sticking around and learning more about this beautiful new product that you have in your home. The first thing I would recommend is go to the cook tile on the Brava. Click on recipes to try first. Start there. Do a few cooks there. Get comfortable understanding how the Brava works. And then go on to something more complicating. The more you use the Brava, the more you'll be able to customize all the different things that Brava does to meet your household's needs. That was the goal, right? Well, remember, while you're going through this whole process, you're not alone. The entire Brava customer success team is actually here waiting for you to reach out to us and to give us the opportunity to help you. You can call us at 855-276-6767. And if you call and we happen to be busy with another customer, just leave a voicemail. You can also email us at hello@brava.com. Now, our promise to you is that if you reach out to us, we promise we'll get back to you. With that, I think it's time to turn this guy on. Give him a spin. Happy cooking.